My name is Ellen Schrecker. I'm a professor of history at Yeshiva University. I saw an ad in Academe for a new editor of the magazine, and I thought, hey, I know a lot about academic freedom. I've studied it during the McCarthy period. I keep up. And I'm interested in editing. I taught freshman composition. So I applied for the job and got it. And for 4 years, I was the editor of the AAUP's magazine. It's a wonderful job. I loved every minute of it. I had wonderful colleagues. I had the opportunity of sort of shaping a discussion about issues that really concerned the academic community and that really concerned faculty members. So we were looking at questions of technology, we were looking at contingent labor, we were looking at medical education. It was a large number of issues that I felt, and I think the organization felt, were important to help faculty members sort of understand how their institutions were changing, how their conditions of labor were changing, and perhaps do something about it. At Yeshiva, long before I got there, the faculty had formed a union. This was really quite unusual and was clearly a response to some fairly intolerable behavior on the part of the administration, like forcing people to retire at random rates. But anyhow, the university fought it, and in 1980, the Supreme Court rendered one of its worst decisions of all time, the so-called infamous Yeshiva decision, which essentially said that faculty members at private institutions were quote-unquote managers. Why? Because they gave grades to students, because they created their own syllabi and did peer review of their colleagues, and other sort of professional tasks like shaping the curriculum, and that therefore rendered them managers. What begins to happen once this sense of financial crisis sets in, and it never went away, it continues throughout, beginning in the 70s to the present, and now, of course, at the moment with the recession, it's really very, very serious, is that the schools begin to restructure themselves with regard to their own financial situation. For example, the most serious problem, of course, is the cut down and sort of shrinkage in tenure positions, that when people with tenure resign and retire, their teaching tends to be replaced by contingent labor, by people who no longer are on the tenure track, but are either part-timers, graduate students, or non-tenure track instructors who are on 1 year or sometimes longer contracts, but have no prospect of a permanent job. And so what we're seeing is a university community that is no longer like that traditional university where most of the faculty was tenured, but rather one in which most of the faculty, 2/3 or more of the teaching, is now being handled by these contingent people who are really struggling. And so it's a very different kind of community, a much more corporate model, and an academic community that is definitely sort of multi-tiered, in which at the very top there are still people with good jobs at major research universities, and then as the sort of you go down the status ladder, you're seeing more and more people in very insecure positions without the kind of support to do research and scholarship that had once been much more common within the university, but who are under increasing pressure to produce the kind of research that once upon a time would have gotten them, top research university positions. So you're seeing fewer jobs, more pressure on people in those jobs, higher standards, and the refrain is often from people who are now tenured and near the end of their career. Oh boy, am I glad I'm not in the job market now. I never could have gotten a job. I never could have gotten tenure. In other words, the criteria have just been for tenure, for getting a tenure position, have just been pushed up higher and higher, and it's been incredibly hard for people. Well, I think the first thing they need to do is join the AAUP. It's an organization that has been around now for almost 90 years, and it's an organization that has a lot of sort of intellectual resources and staff resources, and can really, I think, help people organize on their own campuses to carve out a little more faculty power, especially in situations like my own where you can't form a regular union. The AAUP operates both as a collective bargaining organization and as a sort of advocacy organization, but both of them, both sort of halves of the AAUP, are really focusing on the same issues. Basically, helping faculty members help themselves gain more control over the conditions of their employment, over issues of academic freedom, over issues of quality education. In other words, these are all connected to what higher education is about and are issues that need to be addressed if we want to sort of stop this movement within the academic world toward a more corporate form of higher education, which also includes a hierarchical structure of university governance, which is really antithetical to the educational process and to the quality of higher education. These are issues that have to be decided by the faculty, and the AAUP is the only organization out there on a national level concerned about faculty issues from the faculty perspective, concerned about higher education from the faculty perspective. I think I've become concerned and active in the AAUP essentially through my own intellectual engagement with the issue of academic freedom. And as somebody who's concerned with civil liberties, freedom of speech, and the academy, I've become active in the AAUP because it is, after all, the organization that has as its mission the protection of academic freedom. And I believe that the the university today is really the only area in American society, the only set of institutions within the United States where there is a range of ideas, where serious ideas are being debated. And it's a place that has to be protected if we're going to maintain intellectual freedom, and I believe free speech and democratic government within the United States. And so for all those reasons, I've become an activist within the AAUP because I believe the future of American democracy, in a sense, depends on it.